Welcome to the Redbird Report, your destination for the latest on the St. Louis Cardinals. Here are your hosts, BK and T-Bone.
I hope you're enjoying the ride that is the 2025 St. Louis Cardinals roller coaster. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It is the Redbird Report. Cardinals won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers, T-Bone. That's the lead story today as we open up the show. Has nothing to do with what took place against the Toronto Blue Jays. Just pretend that series never took place. Man, I was riding high. I made the prediction at the end of our last show. Cardinals are going to win 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers, and then they'll get 1 against Toronto. It'll be a 500 6-game stretch. You'll be feeling good, all things considered, coming off of that 6-game stretch. And then they blow it on Monday, losing 10 innings against the Blue Jays, and ultimately only get 2 out of the 6 instead of splitting those 6 games. So what do we learn? We're now 9 games into a homestand. They finished this thing up. KC, LA, Toronto. You end up finishing 3-6 overall on the homestand, T-Bone. Your rotation had a 6 ERA. Your bullpen had a 3.5 ERA. You allowed 5.5 runs per game over the course of this 9-game homestand. But your offense was good. Offense hit about 255, a little bit above average overall when you look at the OPS plus, and you were about 5 runs per game offensively. So you feel pretty good about that and feel pretty terrible about what the rotation is doing right now. What did you learn about the Cardinals in the last 9 games?
Well, I'll start with the good, which is, one, the offense. We've talked about it a lot here on the Redbird Report. The offense is legit, right? Like this offense, even when it's kind of cooled off, you just read off their numbers, and they were very good in this stretch of home games here, and they were the ones that really kept some of these games from looking a lot uglier than they should have, right? Like they should have been blown out in the second game against the Toronto Blue Jays. They should have lost that game like 10-4. They lost 10-9. And they made you feel like they were always in that game, and they felt like that against the Dodgers as well. And then the bullpen, you mentioned those numbers. That goes to show me, and they had a couple of like little blips, little blow-ups there like Roy Croft did against Toronto, where he gave up 2 in an inning and allowed, I think it was like 3 hits and 1 really wild pitch. The bullpen's kind of settled. They figured that out. That was a big talking point in our first couple of episodes, and they have found those roles, and they're still churning through 2 spots at the back part of that bullpen for kind of the guys that are kind of brought into, hey, can you just keep this close so the offense has a chance? And they've been cycling through that, and they continue to do that, and we'll talk about the roster move a little bit later on here in the podcast. The bad, though, is the starting staff, right? I don't think it's going to be as bad as this with 6 ERAs. I think you have seen the regression hit, and it hasn't just like, hey, they're going to like come back to the norm. It's whoosh, we swing all the way back to the other side, which is ugly. But I think it goes to show you the starting staff is the thing that is going to limit the ceiling for the St. Louis Cardinals. Because I thought that their great defense, this what I would call an elite defense, and I still believe that, even though the numbers haven't been as supportive of that since the first month. Not that they've been bad, they just haven't been, like a plus 15 and outs above average in all those defensive metrics. Even it can't save a pitch-to-contact staff. It has very limited effects as to what it can do to this staff that is giving up a ton of hits. You've got guys that are walking a lot, like Eric Fedde and Andre Palante, and trying to work out of it. This is really going to be the thing that limits their ceiling. They are still a good team, and I believe they are still a good team, and I believe they can still be a playoff team. But when I say it requires probably 90 to 92 wins to make the playoffs, with this starting staff, what we just saw them go through here in these last 12 games has made me kind of change my opinion on, they could be a 90-win team to they're probably an 85-win team, and they're going to need reinforcements if they can get that at the trade deadline to make the playoffs.
So when you're playing blackjack, there are certain ways to play aggressive, and there are certain ways to play a little bit more conservative, right? And if you're the aggressive blackjack player and you're just hitting on everything, basically, like anything that there's like even a 5% chance of hitting for you, you go for it. Some people would call you crazy for that. Other people would tell you, man, he's playing the way to try to maximize what his potential return is, depending on your perspective of it. That's the Cardinals. The Cardinals are that blackjack player that's going to play incredibly aggressively because they know it's their only way to win. The Cardinals have no outs here. And unfortunately, over the week, it kind of felt like they literally recorded no outs at times when they had their starters out there. But they are a team that has one way that they can beat you other than when Sonny Gray is on the mound, and that's pitch to contact. They just have to live and die with what happens when the ball is put into play. And there's only so much that you can do. You can position yourself as good as possible. You can have great athletes on the field. You can have plus arms everywhere. Like, all of these things help you to have the best defensive efficiency possible. Eventually, the ball is going to go where you are not. And in those scenarios, you hope that it doesn't become an extra base hit, and you hope that you don't have to deal with any walks. And hopefully you get out of the inning without much of a problem, right? Like, maybe you get a couple of singles and then you get ground ball double play, and then you get a just bloop out to right field, whatever. Cool, got out of the inning. Yeah, you allowed the 2 hits, but no damage was done, so you feel like you're in an okay spot. The Cardinals have run into a couple of series recently where it hasn't gone that way. And instead of it just being the couple hits, it's like 5 or 6 in an inning. And the sequencing is such that, these guys are coming around to score. And now we're in a bad spot. And now suddenly, instead of having, because you pitched to contact, so much efficiency with these guys getting deeper into games, you have to pull them because of a lack of effectiveness. So we've seen guys come out with, 75 pitches. And everybody agrees, you got to take him out. He's just not been effective. So this is where the Cardinals are. And why I bring up the blackjack player is because, man, it can also look really good. Remember that series against the Dodgers? I brought it up at the beginning. Yeah. It was fun, right? Like, yeah, you get Mookie on, and Max Muncy felt like he was on every time that he came up to the plate. Or Shohei Ohtani is hitting rockets all over the field, but he's not coming around to score. They were like 1 for 25 with runners in scoring position in those first 2 games. You went 2-0. Went 2-0, and they scored a combined 1 run. That's not sustainable. What happened against the Dodgers is not something that you can expect to happen over time. Now, it won't be as good as it was against the Dodgers. It also will not always be as bad as it has been against the Royals and the Blue Jays. Those are the 2 worst matchups that you could have had against this kind of a staff. They're the top 2 teams when it comes to the lowest strikeout rate in Major League Baseball. So I think that's really the question that I'm going to be honing in on moving forward is, how much of this was the matchup versus how much of this was, not only is regression coming for this staff, but the Cardinals are about to go through a stretch where they're going to be one of the worst staffs in Major League Baseball in terms of their rotation. Because that's what they've been, man. You look the last 3 times through the rotation, Michaelis, 7.8 ERA. Andre Palante last 4 starts, 6.2 ERA. Libby last 3 starts, 9 ERA. That is just not something you can overcome. I know the offense has been good. You can't overcome that, man.
Yeah, no, you can't rely where you need the offense to score like 8 runs, 7 runs a game when you're giving up about 5 per, right? Like that is unsustainable. That was like the 2023 Cardinals in a nutshell was, hey, can the offense score? Yeah. And they couldn't do it. But what makes me more alarmed than just saying of, hey, this was the matchup, right? Because, like, I agree. You look at it, Royals don't strike out a lot. You look at it, the Blue Jays don't strike out a lot. So, yes, that is a bad matchup for the St. Louis Cardinals. Well, then what am I supposed to make of it? The fact that the Texas Rangers scored a bunch of runs on you, right? And they were one of the worst offenses in baseball, and they are 10th in strikeout rate so far this year. And the other thing, too, to that Royals, sure, they make a lot of contact. They were not scoring runs. Like, they were there with the Colorado Rockies, who are going to potentially break the record for most losses in a season. So, sure, they made contact, but they weren't scoring runs, and then they just came in and bludgeoned you. Texas did the same thing to you. Like, that's where I'm looking at this going, boy, okay, I agree it is not going to be this bad. It also continues to reiterate just how perfect these, like when these starters, like Michaelis, Palante, Fetty, I think it's fair to throw Liberatore into this conversation now. When those guys don't have their A-plus stuff, it's a lot harder for them to just kind of wiggle out of stuff, right? We've seen Sonny Gray when there's games where he doesn't have his best stuff, or like in that Dodgers game, he was good. He gave up like 7 or 8 hits in his start, but he still was able to find a way to maneuver around it. I don't think you're getting that from the bottom portion of this rotation, and it makes me wonder where they're actually going to settle in at right now, right? Like Matthew Liberatore has come back down to earth. Fatigue has really started to set in on him. And if he doesn't have the ceiling of a potential of a 3 this year, and he falls more into that like 4 or 5 range, so now you've got like 3 to 4 4s in your rotation with Sonny Gray.
You knew this, though.
I know.
None of this is surprising.
What's surprising to me is the fact of the matter that, okay, I knew regression was coming for them. And maybe it's not even surprising. I think it's where I'm starting to admit I might have been wrong. I didn't think it was going to fall as far back as I think it's going to. But and it's not as bad as this, but I don't think it's going to get back to where it was previously as well.
Probably not.
It's probably going to be 15 to 20th range would be my guess.
Yeah. I think we all kind of knew that. Like we thought that they were 12th when they were at their peak. Their best was like a top 12-ish rotation. They're probably closer to 20 in terms of their effectiveness overall. And I think you can win that way. Now, it's hard. It requires a great defense. It requires a great bullpen. It requires a very good offense. Like, you need all of these other things, because if you've got like four sides, four legs to a chair, and you kick one of them out, well, it might be able to stabilize with the other three staying there. There's no guarantee, but it's possible. And that seems to be where the Cardinals are at. Just to go back to your Rangers point, though, I'll push back on that a little bit. I mean, Graceffo gave up 4 runs in that series. He did that in 1 inning. Swanson gave up 2 runs in 1 inning. Roddery Munoz gave up another couple of runs in 1 inning. And that was also a blow up by Steven Matt's game, where he gave up the 3 runs with 1/3 of an inning. So it wasn't great, but Fedde was actually good in that game that he started. They lost 8-1, but Fedde went 6 innings, gave up 2 earned runs. He was good for his own standards. And in the other one, like, Libby wasn't great, and that was the first time where you really started to see the velo dip. But he went 5 innings, gave up 4 earned runs, 5 strikeouts in that one. He was okay, all things considered. That's the kind of start, like, if you got that in the playoffs out of Fedde or out of Libby, okay, we can live with this, and hopefully our offense is able to make up for it, and our bullpen shuts them down afterwards. The opposite happened in that game. He left, and they scored more after he left than they did when he was in. So I don't think that one is quite as representative of the issues that we're talking about with the Cardinals as the Royals and the Blue Jays series were. And that's where it's now a fork in the road moment. We're about to find out. Like, maybe it ends up totally falling off, and Palante just has no answers for right-handed hitters. And Libby is going through a stretch right now where it's not even dead arm, because it's not at the beginning of games. Yeah. It's hitting him in the 4th, 5th, and 6th innings where he's velo gone. Poof. It's just like, it's like the Monstars come down and like sap all of the power out of him once he gets to the 5th inning. I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on with that. They seem to say it's like some kind of a mechanical issue. Maybe the mechanics get out of whack as he gets a little bit more tired. That's possible, but we're about to find out. Fedde, can he keep outrunning these like underlying numbers that suggest, dude, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing this. It's 250 innings. He has a 3.38 ERA since the start of last season. Maybe he can. I don't know how or why, but maybe he's the outlier. And then you look at Michaelis, like, he's what he is. He's a mid-4s ERA guy now. And he's going to have games where it looks really bad, but overall he's going to give you these innings. He's going to be a solid number 5 starter. What does that mean? It means you hope like hell you get to July 31st and you're still in it. That's it. Because you have to upgrade this. You cannot have this be your rotation when you go into the playoffs if you think this is a playoff contender. That's not good enough. But can you get to July 31st and still be within striking distance or ahead of the Cubs? Can you get to July 31st and be, within a game or 2 of the playoffs and convince the front office, hey, if you go get the right chip, we can get in? Yeah. But that, to me, is now where I'm looking at. You have 6 weeks to find out if this rotation can just keep you afloat. That's all you're asking from them.
Yeah, and I don't know if they can, right? Like, I've started to, because when we would talk in the past, right, there was always 2 guys that I felt like, okay, you've got Sonny Gray, you've got Matthew Liberatore. And then, like, you just hope to win one of the other 3 starts, and boom, you go 3-2 in a 5-game stretch. And you start to do that slowly, and man, now we're cooking, right? Now you're really looking like a good ball club because you're winning 60% of your games then. But now I'm looking at this going, who's the guy that I trust to win a baseball game with when they're on the mound? Sonny Gray, end of list? Is Fedde there? Like, I wouldn't put Fedde there because I'm a guy that truly, like, I know it's 250 innings. That is a huge sample size, and it hasn't regressed. Man, it's coming, man. You cannot continue to do the John Gant Houdini and get away with it.
Fedde is miscast as a, 2 or 3. But Fedde gives you a chance to win, man. He does. Don't watch. Like, seriously, do not watch Eric Fedde starts. That's why you don't like him.
I should just have you text me when he's out of the game?
Yes. Okay. Like, wait until a buddy reaches out and says,
dude, it's over.
Hey, Fedde's done. He went 6. He gave up 3. It was ugly. And you look at it, you're like, oh, cool. They're up 4-3. Sounds great. Like, that's the best way to watch Eric Fedde starts, is to just not watch. Because if you don't watch and then you just look at the numbers, you're like, pretty good. He's got a mid-3s ERA this year. If I had told you on opening day, hey, you're going to get like 12 starts into the season with Eric Fedde, and he's going to have a 3.54 ERA. He's going to have thrown 74 innings in the first 13 starts. Are you signing up or are you pressing your luck and hoping for something more? Oh. We would all sign up so unbelievably fast, we would trip over ourselves to hit that button immediately. So he's been what you asked for. Now, would I sign up for that again in the second half? Hell yeah, I would. I would have already signed up for that from now until the end of the year as well. I don't think that's likely, but can he be a 4? Which is basically a quality start every time out? Yeah, I think he can be.
Out of curiosity, I'm curious if you know these numbers, right? What do you think the Cardinals' record is when Eric Fedde starts?
I have no idea.
Because
I couldn't tell you.
Because like what you just described, like they're in every ball game. I would think it would be complete flip of what I'm about to tell you. They are 4-9 on an Eric Fedde start.
That's crazy. Like, that doesn't compute for me.
Yeah, he's 3-5 on the year, but these are just like the result of the game, right? I'm not talking about wins and losses. They are 4-9 when Eric Fedde starts, and like your description is not even wrong.
He's had the most brutal losses this year. Oh man, that Pittsburgh loss in 13 innings, that was a Fedde start. The loss against Detroit where they blew it, Fedde was on the mound that day. The 2-1 game against Philly, Fedde was on the mound that day as well. This is not his fault. It's not your fault, man. This is not on Eric Fedde.
You should be closer to 500, Eric. It's okay.
Yeah. So he's done what he needed to do this season for you. So I don't know really if you could have asked for anything more out of Fedde. Now is the time where we get to find out. Okay, we knew Palante was going to go through his struggles this year at some point. We knew that Libby was going to hit some kind of a block. We didn't know what it was going to be. Maybe it was right-handed hitters found a way to get him. Maybe it was like he hits a wall with the innings and he just runs out of gas. Something was always going to happen with those two guys. And the question was going to be, how do they respond? What is their response to Major League Baseball's response? And we're seeing that right now. Major League Baseball has responded to Palante and to Liberatore. And Libby is also running into some kind of a block as well. Like some of it is self-imposed. Now we get to find out what are the Cardinals' answers with their coaching staff, and what are those two players, what are they capable of when it comes to responding to Major League Baseball? Gorman didn't have a response. We're just now finding out if he can get another response, like 2 years after he first got adjusted to at the Major League level. Walker, same thing. Never had a response. That's on the hitting side of things. Pitching is the same thing, but reversed. So we'll find out. But that's what this next stretch of, 10, 15, 20 games is going to be about for those two pitchers.
And the reason that I brought up the, who do you feel comfortable in getting a win with in the rotation right now? And I think my answer is just Sonny Gray. The reason I ask that is because over this next stretch before we get to just the All-Star break, right? Because right around the All-Star break might be about the time when maybe some thoughts will really start to go through Mo's head of, okay, are we buyers or sellers? He may not define what they are. He'll probably be closer, if not already have a decision made. They've got 17 games against the division before the All-Star break. They've got 4 at Milwaukee, which starts tonight as we're recording on Thursday. They've then got 3 coming up against the Cincinnati Reds the following week, and then that big 4-game set at home against the Cubs, 3 at the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then right before the All-Star break, the weekend prior, 2 weekends prior to the All-Star break, at the Chicago Cubs.
4th of July weekend at Wrigley, baby. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So I just said they got 17 games. I think those 17 games, and they've got some that are sprinkled from outside the division, those 17 games will probably define the 2025 Cardinals season.
Coming up next, the Cardinals made the changes that were necessary. T-Bone mentioned them. The roster has been overhauled to a degree. Did they go far enough? Did they make all of the changes that were necessary? We'll answer that for you next here on the Redbird Report. The Cardinals have done it. Our long national nightmare is officially over. Ryan Vilade has been sent down. He's been DFA'd by the St. Louis Cardinals. T-Bone, I feel bad because I don't mean to take joy in a grown man who is living out his dream, like his demotion. That doesn't bring me joy. But seeing the Cardinals do the right thing does. And Ryan Vilade was not the right thing any longer. I understood to a degree why they got themselves to a position where Ryan Vilade, a right-handed outfield bat, was the guy that they needed to call up. He was having success at the minor league level. They needed an outfield bat, and he hit from the right side. Okay, you're the next guy up. You got to help us. But it became very clear, very quickly, this was just not the guy. He's not going to be the one that can help them in the situations that they needed it. So he gets sent down. They have made a number of different moves. Chris Roycroft was optioned down. That makes sense. He's thrown 50 pitches over the last 2 games as we are talking right now. He was going to be unavailable, I have to imagine, for like the next 3. So basically not any time in this series. This is the life of living on that Memphis shuttle. Roycroft will be back up sooner rather than later, probably. So what are the corresponding moves? Well, they have recalled Michael Ciani, who will be back up with the big league club, defensive replacement, maybe get some opportunities to spell Victor Scott, who's really going through it offensively right now. And they've added a bullpen arm. Andre Granillo is now going to be added to the team. He was selected on the 40-man roster. He has been unbelievable down in Memphis. He's striking out like 15 batters per 9 innings. His ERA is down like in the 1s. He's been great for them. It was time to give him a shot. He was not the same player a year ago. I don't know if he's going to be the same player next year or even next month, but you might as well try to catch lightning in the bottle and see what you have here, especially as we get closer to this trade deadline. If the Cardinals find out that they are a contender, well, I would like to know if you have that right-handed reliever internally instead of having to go potentially trade for one. So you've now got 6 weeks to find out what is Andre Granillo. So he's going to be a part of this roster along with Michael Ciani. And it's worth noting Jordan Walker has been sent on a rehab assignment. He'll probably be back, my guess is, for that Chicago White Sox series. So you have a few days before you get to see Jordan Walker back at the big league club. T-Bone, all of these moves, like what they did, this all makes sense to me. I like all of these moves individually. I just wanted one more. And this is what's so frustrating is Jose Barrero remains on this roster, and I have no clue what he does here. I'm sure he's a great dude. I'm sure he's a great guy inside of the clubhouse. But he has no role. They don't want to use him as a right-handed bat off of the bench. They don't want to use him as a defensive replacement. They almost never pinch run for anybody because this is not a team that's like has a bunch of slugs on the roster. So I'm desperately asking T-Bone, can you explain to me why Jose Barrero remains on this roster right now? Because it seems to me that would be an obvious spot for one of Luken Baker, right-handed bat, thump off of the bench for a team that has a ton of lefties right now, or Thomas Ajacci, right-handed bat who can come in and play second, third, at times maybe shortstop. Maybe you give him an opportunity here or there in the outfield as well if he feels comfortable doing that, but they opted against that.
Yeah, I can't explain the Barrero decision to keep him here. You know, in spring training, they would talk about his versatility, right? He's a guy that can play shortstop. He can go out and play in center field. Like, oh, he's what you would dream about for a kind of a Swiss Army knife type player. Okay, well, when I see you pinch hit for Victor Scott and then slide Lars Nootbaar over to center field and then at the time put Valade out in a corner outfield spot, then it tells me you don't have a role for Barrero, because you're right. They're not pinch running for him. You're not pinch hitting for him. And if he's not going to be the guy that goes in as the defensive replacement in center field when you pinch hit for Scott, which Michael Ciani will now become, you don't have a role for him. And I don't even know if they would actually put him at shortstop if Mason Wynn ended up getting hurt. I think if Donovan were healthy, they'd slide him over there to finish out that game, put Gorman at second base if he wasn't in the lineup, and boom, they'd probably then call up a Thomas Ajacci or someone like that to fill that void. All this is they're afraid they're going to lose him on waivers. And if you did, I'm not sure I'm thinking that you're missing that much from him. I think that roster spot could so much be better used by using a Luken Baker, to your point, or a Thomas Ajacci, but I've given up on that one for now. But Luken Baker, for sure, could be a guy that could come off of the bench against a left-hander and provide some pop for this lineup. And then if it is a, say, Victor Scott that you pinch hit for, or maybe it's an Alec Burleson that you pinch hit for in that spot against a lefty, now you've got the replacement to go out there and not only have somebody that can play the outfield, but actually like provide Gold Glove level defense in the outfield in Michael Ciani. So I like the 2 moves that they did. I don't get why they didn't end up making this move with Barrero either.
It's very confusing to me. I don't understand it at all. And it gets me to let's play out a scenario here, right? Let's do a little role play between you and I here on the Redbird Report. So here's the situation. Cardinals are down 4-2. It's the 7th inning. Arenado gets on. You're going up against the Brewers in this series. Bottom of the lineup is coming up. You're going up against Jared Koenig, who is a lefty reliever for the Brewers. By the way, they have 4 of them in their bullpen, so you're going to see a parade of lefties coming in against your lineup, especially as you get towards the bottom in this series. Koenig versus lefties this year has allowed a 170 average and an OPS of 485. So they're terrible against him. Right-handed hitters against Koenig this year, getting a lefty reliever, have hit 270 with a 360 on base percentage, which is like Newt at his best for context here, and a 730 OPS. So to simplify all of this, right-handed hitters have a 250 point better OPS against Koenig than lefties do. So here's your spot. Down 4-2, 7th inning. Arenado is already on base. Nobody is out. And you have Gorman, Pages, Scott, Newt coming up. 3 of the next 4 batters bat from the left side. How are you playing that if you're in Ollie's shoes? Because ideally, you would have Thomas Ajacey to bat there for Nolan Gorman. Ideally, you would have Luken Baker to bat for Victor Scott. And then you just have Ajacey continue to play at second, and you have Luken Baker replaced in the next inning in center field for Michael Ciani. Yeah. That is in an ideal world the way that you could deploy your options off of the bench. They can't do that right now. That would also require them to put Donovan on the ILs. Like there's other stuff that would have to take place to do what I just mentioned there. But this is not an ideal world. It's also not like the second best scenario. I genuinely don't know how or if you could pinch hit in this spot, T-Bone. What do you do?
Yeah, so you've had Gorman at first, right? Arenado's on first, but I mean Gorman leading off.
Gorman's coming up. Because that's the way that they have constructed the lineup today. Gorman, Pages, Scott, Gorman, Pages, Scott, Nootbaar would be the next 4 up, 3 of them batting from the left side against a lefty reliever.
So I think the way that you have to handle this is I think Gorman's the guy that takes that at bat, left on left, which is not ideal. And then if he gets on, then I think you have a conversation about pinch hitting for Pages
with Pozo.
And then you just have to have Scott and Newt take those at-bats. And what makes this so tough, and the reason I say, like, if Gorman gets on base, is to me, you've only got one shot at this for this pinch hit opportunity, and it's with Pozo. So I'm only doing that whenever I think is the best high leverage spot. And that might mean if Gorman gets out and Arenado's still on first base and there's one out runner at first, then Pages takes that at-bat. And if he gets on, okay, now I'm pinch hitting Pozo for Scott. Now that means I'm also burning my backup catcher, and that's the one thing that I think these roster moves are really going to push Ollie Marmol on is, are you going to use Pozo, as that pinch hitter, right? That's not just for the catcher spot, because if you burn him for, say, Scott, now I've burned Pozo and I burned Ciani and I just burnt half my bench.
No, more than half, because Donovan's not available.
Oh, that's right. For today, yeah.
All you have left is
Barrero. So you're down to Barrero. And they're not going to pinch hit with him. And then the reason I mention this as you burn your backup catcher is we know they don't want to lose the DH and then push Herrera in if something does happen to Pages. And I think sometimes they are overly afraid of that. But I did see Pages take like a beating in that Kansas City series. So I can understand how they could be fearful of that. So I think it just gets super difficult because instead of getting like 2 shots potentially, if you had a Luken Baker up here to also pair with Pozo as right-handed bats off the bench, then you get 2 shots to potentially try and pick and choose when is the best high leverage spot to do this. You don't have that now, especially while Donovan is out. Now, when Donovan comes back, it changes a little bit. But again, you still, in this scenario you're laying out, well, then I might have, say, Gorman on the bench. Well, he's not pinch hitting left on left.
Nope.
So they are very limited in what they are capable of doing. And it goes back to what I've said a lot on the podcast, on BK and Ferrario. The Cardinals feel like continuously they keep playing with, instead of a 26-man roster, they somehow create an opportunity to where they end up being down to just 24 to 25 most of the time. And that Barrero role is the same as what it was last year. By the time we got about 2 months in, that Brandon Crawford was. Right? There was no role for Brandon Crawford. He was here way longer than he should have been. And you go back 2 years ago, and it was Taylor Motter, where it just did not fit into us. Well, we got to have a guy sit the bench. Or we maximize the roster, right? Every guy on your roster should have a role. All 26 guys should have a role. And that doesn't necessarily mean they have to get a ton of playing time, right? But they should have a defined role on this team. And the fact that we can circle Barrero and say he doesn't have one goes to show you can do a better job with that roster spot.
Especially when you're the Cardinals.
Yes.
In their current form. If you're the Dodgers, you can get away with like giving away a spot or 2. If you're the Phillies, you can maybe get away with that. If you're the Mets, you can get away with that. The Cardinals cannot. The Cardinals have to maximize every edge that they have. So individual games, if you get into this spot that we're talking about and you're down 4-2, you've got a bunch of lefties coming up, you need to have an answer. This is what the Rays model is, right? Every edge we have, we take advantage of because we have to play to the percentages. We have to give ourselves the best chance possible over 162. And we believe if we do that over 162, the odds will be in our favor. Now, sometimes that doesn't work out in the playoffs because it's small sample size theater. It's all that different stuff. But over time, we believe that we're going to be able to win more games because of the stuff that we're doing. The Cardinals, I will give them credit, are doing this in the bullpen this year. It's the first time it's been this way in a while, man. I will give them full kudos. They said they wanted more flexibility at the back end of their bullpen. And I'm not talking about like the 7th, 8th, 9th innings, like the 7th and 8th relievers. And they're churning through those guys, man. It was Graceffo for a while. It was O'Brien for a while. Roycroft has had a role. Munoz has had a role. We've now seen Granillo, which has been great. Fernandez, Swanson, like they are really churning through. Good. That's the way that it should be. You should continuously cycle through these guys, see if you catch lightning in a bottle, and the moment that it goes south or the moment that a guy's unavailable, we've got other options. Cool. Glad you're doing that. And for the most part right now, you look at the bench, and for the first time in a while, they're starting to get there. Like, if their bench today was Pozo, Gorman, Ciani, that's a good starting point. You have clear roles for those guys if Donovan was healthy currently. It's one spot that we're talking about here. And I know people can get frustrated sometimes where it's like, dude, how much does the 26th man really matter? It does matter for this team because of all of the things that I just mentioned in the situations that will arise. It will happen at some point in the series, most likely, where you are playing a man down and you feel it. And you'll know it if you're listening to this podcast right now. You will know the moment when it comes up. And you'll immediately say to yourself, that's a Luken Baker spot. Or that's a Thomas Ajayci spot. And that doesn't mean those guys would come through in those moments. There is no guarantee of that. But it means they would have a better chance, likely, than the player that's about to go to the plate. And that's incredibly frustrating that you're willingly doing that to your team when the margin for error for this team is so small. And the margin for error for this team could be at the trade deadline really 1 or 2 wins. And those could happen this weekend. When they're without Walker, they're potentially without Donovan, and you're playing a couple men down and then you're playing a man short on your bench. It's just, to me, a really frustrating position to put yourself in. And it's all because you don't want to lose Barrero to waivers. And man, I'm sorry, but like Barrero is not a guy that should cause that much consternation within the organization. It's just not.
Yeah. I agree with you there. And it goes back to what you've talked about a lot before. It's about the process, not necessarily the result, right? Because you're right. It is possible you could pinch hit with Luken Baker and maybe he hits into the like ending double play that we're talking about here. But I sure as heck feel a lot better about Baker taking in a bat left on right versus Scott going left on left right now. Because Scott's going through it right on left, right? He is struggling entirely so far. So I'm with you. It's incredibly frustrating. And even the kind of, I know they did it, right? Like they finally have called up Andre Granillo. But like it probably was a couple days a little bit late. And it was all because they couldn't, what are we going to do with our 40-man roster?
Yep.
When you just DFA'd Vilade, right? Like that could have happened 3 days ago. You could have gotten to that spot 3 days ago. Jose Fermin is on the 40-man roster. What is Fermin's role with this club? Like there's just so many, and it's really probably just those were the two. But it
I would
feels like
add
it's
another.
constant.
Why hasn't Sajasi taken opportunities in the outfield?
Yeah.
Why? Like, what is the downside to this? Oh, he's bad at it? Okay.
Walker was bad at it. And here's the other thing is, okay, so if you say, well, Sajasi's bad at it, we tried it this year. Well, why wasn't he trying this? You know, if you thought maybe he might be a Swiss Army knife when you acquired him at the 23 deadline, well, it took Walker 3 years to get to a spot where he looks like an above average outfielder. Like it takes time to do this. So why did you not start that sooner too? So even if you do try it and you say, well, he's not good at it. Well, I would say, okay, we'll keep going, right? Like this shouldn't just be he's not good at it, so we're giving up on it. No, he should continue to work at it.
And I would say beyond that, it's an acceptance of what a player is going to be most likely for you. And for Luken Baker, his role is going to be this. He's never going to be a starter for you at the major league level. It's just never going to happen. And they seemed to be accepting of that for like a season with a guy, what was his name? He hit he had the big hit, big homer in the playoff game against the Phillies. Juan Yepez. He had 1 year where he had a very specific role. You're going to be a DH against left-handed pitchers. That's it. There's nothing more there for you. You're going to come off of the bench against left-handed pitchers. That can be a role that Baker can thrive in, but you just have to understand that's going to be it. That's it right now. That's it 5 years from now. There's never going to be anything more that comes from that. And if you're not okay with that, well, then what? We're getting nothing? Like the choice is we get this, which is, 5 at-bats a week, or we get nothing, ever. Like, which one seems like the better use of this asset? That's what I don't understand. And the same thing is true for Sajasi. I would love for somebody within the organization to explain to me, how does this guy get starting opportunities every day at any point here? Like, forget just in 2025, 2026, 2027, show me the path for that. Because I'm really failing to do so, whether that includes Gorman, Donovan, Arenado, JJ Weatherholt. He is so far down the pecking order. Mason Wynn, he's so far down the pecking order of the infielders, second base, shortstop, and third base. There is no opportunity there, barring like 2 or 3 different injuries. We're seeing one right now. It's obviously not leading to him getting those opportunities. So instead, capitalize on the asset that you acquired. You clearly valued him when you traded Jordan Montgomery, and utilize him in a very specific role. Super utility. That means outfield one day. That means second base one day. It means third base one day. Left-handed pitcher is on the mound. Sajasi is starting. Lefty comes into the game. You've got one of Gorman or Burleson or Scott coming up. Guess what? Sajasi's coming in for this spot. There is a role for him here. It's just not the role that they specifically want to carve out for him. And that role is never coming. It's just not. They need to accept that at some point in time. And the quicker they do so, the sooner they'll be able to get some kind of a return on that investment. All right, he's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, what is the outlook for Nolan Gorman? I just mentioned the difficulty in trying to find everyday opportunities for Thomas Sajasi. Those opportunities are happening right now for Gorman. Can they continue, or is this a very limited runway once again for Gorman? We'll talk about that next year on the Redbird Report. There's an opportunity that exists right now for Nolan Gorman. The question is, how long is it going to be there for him? Because Jordan Walker is coming back from the injured list sooner rather than later. Brendan Donovan, if they thought this was going to be serious, if they thought he was going to be out for more than a week, I think they would have placed him on the IL today. So it seems as though they are convinced he'll be all right, probably at some point by the end of the weekend. So there's no reason to put him on the IL. So you just have him out for the next couple of days. So that opportunity is there right now for Gorman, but the players that could replace him in the lineup, that cavalry is coming sooner rather than later. But Gorman's been good, T-Bone. He's hitting for average. The swing and miss is down in a significant way. He's hitting for power again right now. That is something that this lineup has really lacked recently. Is there a way for him to do what we saw Burleson do, which is swinging his way back into the lineup on a consistent basis? Is that available for him?
I don't think it is because of Burleson. I think Burleson is kind of the guy that drives this. And it's not so much tied to Walker because I think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that when he comes back. But, man, you want to talk about a guy swinging a hot bat just along with Nolan Gorman. Dude, Alec Burleson's been swinging a hot bat as well, to where you look at him and it is, okay, well, it's hard to take his bat out of the lineup. He's hitting 293 on the year, right? His batting average. And his OPS is at 758. So I don't think there's a path forward for Nolan Gorman. And the part that makes this so tough is the fact that they just don't feel comfortable with Herrera behind the plate.
Yeah.
Because it would be a lot easier to find a path for Gorman/Burley against right-handed pitching if you went Herrera behind the plate, you then got Donovan at second, and you can either go with Burley in right and Gorman as your DH, or if you went with Walker in right field that day, you then decide between Burley and Gorman. But you'd find a pretty good balance there, right? I think Ollie has proven he can find a way to kind of work with one extra puzzle piece and find a way to get it some at-bats and get it starts. I just don't know where that playing time's coming from when you get Donovan healthy again and you add Walker to this mix. And by the way, Herrera's got to be kind of locked into that DH spot. So no, I don't think there's a way for him to swing his way back on. I think he almost has to do what's almost impossible, which is, hey, you're going to have to be that bench bat that we turn to against high leverage right-handed relievers. You're going to have to continue hitting while you're in that role. And then when somebody starts to cool off, like maybe Alec Burleson cools off, then we'll find a way to balance more playing time for you.
I've got a way you could do it.
Oh, boy.
You put him in at second. You put Donovan in left field. Burleson's in right field. And now suddenly it all works. That means no Walker. That means no Nootbaar. Nootbaar's been going through it. He's won for his last 24 with 13 strikeouts. That is not a Lars Nootbaar line. The strikeouts are way up. This chase is way up. The walks are down. He's 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts yesterday, and that was coming off of like a clear your head kind of a day. They have decided to keep Lars Nootbaar at the top of the order today, going into the first game of the series against Milwaukee. That's going up against a right-handed pitcher with a lot of velo. That is the kind of guy you would want Nootbaar to succeed against. So maybe this is one last chance, a rookie coming up to make his debut, high velo, high heat. That's Nootbaar's like bat path. This is your chance to go out there and show us one more time. But in the event that Donovan is back, like Sunday, for example, right? You're going up against a right-handed pitcher on the mound that day. You could make that work with just throwing all of your lefties in there other than Nootbaar. But is that something they're really going to do? Where they prioritize Gorman's at-bats over Lars Nootbaar's at-bats? I don't know. The production is impossible to ignore. One of them in their last 6 games is 1 for 24. The other one in the last 11 games is 10 for 27, and he has a double, a triple, and 2 home runs out of those 10 hits. So it's not hard production-wise to see which one's the hotter bat, but which one of those you really believe in long-term will be better, I think is a fair question.
Yeah, and I think that is the goal of this season is still about runway, right? Even though we are having conversations about, hey, what do you do at the deadline if you're in it, if you're not in it? I think what has still been proven, even though they are back to, they went through a weird roller coaster of this, but hey, we're going to pinch hit and try and win ball games too. Oh, no, we're going to just have left on left be our matchups too. Back to, okay, now we're going to pinch hit when we think it's right. The North Star for most of their decisions when it comes to playing time has been about runway. It has not just been about production. And that's where I think they will look at this and say it is still Lars Nootbaar, the guy that will be in the outfield. Even through his struggles, we still want to get, I don't even know if it's fair to say they want to get answers on him. I think his biggest question was, could you stay healthy?
Yeah. And the answer's been yes so far.
Yeah, so far the answer's been yes. So I don't see that is changing. Where I think it's interesting is that right field one that you're talking about, where it's between Burley and Walker.
Whew.
Because he kind of felt like he was in a platoon. They wouldn't say it like you'd ask, and Ollie would say, no, it's not a platoon.
And it was hard because they had gone up against 7 out of 10 lefties were in the out or were on the mound. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of runway for Jordan Walker, but also
there wasn't a lot. It's hard to tell. And there were still righty matchups they were kind of avoiding him from, right? Yeah. You saw a hard slider. He wasn't in the lineup. So
and he shouldn't have been.
Exactly.
Burleson was the better option.
So, that's the one that I find to be the most intriguing is when he comes back, and what makes it even so much harder, too, and there's no denying it, he went on a little mini, tiny 10-game run where you're like, whoa, okay, is it clicking? He's not just hitting the ball hard. He's hitting the ball hard, and he's hitting for authority. He's got some extra base hits. It all is starting to look like the Jordan Walker that we saw kind of in 2022 when he first arrived. Or, 2023 when he first arrived. But is that the same now? He hasn't swung a bat and faced pitching for about a little over a week? And sure, he's going on a rehab assignment. That's AAA pitchers.
There's your right-handed bat.
There's the right-handed bat
that we're talking about coming off of the bench against relievers. Now, the hard part is a lot of those relievers that you're talking about potentially have a slider. A lot of them have nasty stuff, high velo, all of those different things. But in the event, and this is just such a hard role for a young player, but it is what it is. If you have a lefty or a righty on the mound to start the game and a lefty comes in and you're platooning that spot in the outfield, and we were talking about it earlier, down 4-2, lefty comes in, you've got the bottom of the order. Walker could be that guy that comes in this spot, and then you have some flexibility as well with, Donovan could come back down to second base, potentially all of these different things. He could be the guy that we're talking about that you need that roster spot for. Maybe Barrero goes back down whenever Walker returns.
The problem, though, is I think he's starting against a bunch of righties, too. I don't think he's going to get platoon.
I don't know, man. Who are you starting him in favor of?
Burley? I think they're going to choose Newton Walker over Gorman and Burleson. And I know that's weird.
I think it becomes a question of, out of these 5 players, you basically get to start 3 of them. Donovan, Burleson, Walker, Gorman, and Nootbaar. Out of those 5, you get 3 spots at second, left, and right every day. And then when Herrera is behind the plate, you also get DH.
Yeah.
So you can occasionally start 4 of them. But I think it becomes a question of like, how do you rotate that? And it might just be like, hey, each of you is going to get a day off each week. Every single one of you gets a day off each week. And then we'll also have the day of DH. So then you get four opportunities. That's still not a ton of playing time.
No.
I think you probably have to choose one of those other guys that previously was out. So it's a big math equation. They're going to have to map this thing out. Stuff gets tougher here pretty soon in terms of the playing time. The way that they always talk about this, like stuff works itself out, but it'll be interesting. I think to answer the question, like, is Gorman going to have an extended runway? No.
Yeah, I was going to say, the one man that I feel like definitely falls out of this is Gorman, right? And I don't think it's anything to do with him. I think it's just everybody that we just named has been hitting.
And they're higher. They were already... Ty goes to the player that had the lead, and Gorman was already behind Alec Burleson, behind Jordan Walker, behind Donovan, behind Nootbaar. So those guys have to fail for longer before he then gets that opportunity again.
100%. That's what makes it tough for him is he needs a couple of them to go through. And I don't even know if it's fair to put Nootbaar in that conversation. I just think Nootbaar's locked in, right? Until they prove me wrong, Nootbaar's locked into left field for me. So it comes down to Burleson, Walker, and Donovan. To me, he's locked in. So it really comes down to Burleson, Walker, and then like the occasional time when you want to move her behind home plate. Good luck, Gorman. Like, I don't know when you're getting playing time, man.
All right. So we mentioned where Nootbaar is at in the lineup today. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon prior to game 1 in Milwaukee. They decided to keep him at the top of the order. Just your initial reaction to this, T-Bone, it's pretty organic. We just saw this about an hour ago. Were you surprised that they kept the order as is? They did not make any changes. Lars Nootbaar still at the top, and everything else kind of you run it down the way that it has been.
I was a little surprised just because, like you mentioned, they just made their roster move, so it kind of feels like the perfect time you're making roster moves, so why not shuffle up the lineup a little bit? I just don't think they feel like they've got a comfortable answer if you take out in theory, on base guy out of that role. Where I will be questioning is, okay, I get it today a little bit because you don't have Donovan. I would move Donovan to lead off when he's available next.
I think that's the move.
That's when I wonder if we'll see that lineup shuffle. But my initial reaction was, I'm a little surprised. Thought maybe they would try and change it up. But without Donovan, I think they're just waiting for him to get back before they maybe make that decision.
That's my guess, too. I think they just don't want to go with Wynn at the top of the order against a bunch of righties over the next few days. And I don't mind that. I think eventually you just have to acknowledge, like, our best spot with Lars Nootbaar is going to be with him at the top of the order. We've got to get him right. That's the goal for all of this. We've got to get him right. And if that means that he's striking out at the top of the order, so be it. But we've got to figure this thing out with him. And we believe that this is the best way to get him back on track, is just to continue getting these at-bats. That may change, and Donovan's presence probably does change that. But for right now, I don't necessarily blame them. I was surprised, though. I didn't think they were going to keep it this way, but I kind of understand the thought process behind it. All right, Cardinals, 4 games in Milwaukee. Then they have 3 in Chicago against the White Sox. T-Bone, we don't have to talk about that White Sox series. You need to win 2 out of 3 at a minimum. Like, it's a terrible team. I'll give you 1 maybe that you can play with there. I think you would probably need to win all 3, but baseball's weird. Stuff happens. You got to win at least 2. It's really that the conversation is about this series in Milwaukee. My personal threshold, you got to split. At a minimum, you have to split here. Keep pace with everybody else in your division. I don't care. Like, this is a true pass-fail test for me. Go out there, win 2 out of the 4. You probably need to get this first one with Sonny Gray on the mound, and then take your chances. The next 3, you've got 3 opportunities to win 1. You'll be feeling good going into that series on the road at the Chicago White Sox, where you have a clear and decided advantage over them. How do you feel going into this one?
I agree that I think at minimum you need this to be a split. Right, you lose 3 of 4. I believe they would leapfrog you in the standings, if I'm not mistaken. They're either a half game or a game back. Either way, now you don't feel great about where you're at, right?
They're half game, so they would jump.
They would leapfrog you. So you drop 3 of 4. Now you're looking up at Milwaukee, right? And it's one thing to be, and I'm not saying that this one series determines this, but I have said this before, right? Like where they are today, where they're about 2 games back of the last wild card spot, to me, you buy. Now, I don't know if that's how the front office feels, but I personally would lean towards, hey, you buy because you've got a fighting chance. But if you're like 2-3 games back and you're also looking up at teams that are also outside the playoff picture, then to me you would sell. And that's why this series feels so big right now. This to me is like the worst case scenario. This is a nightmare. When T-Bone dreams about baseball, this is a nightmare where you are not pitching your best right now with a pitch to contact staff, and you're going to Milwaukee where it is a hitter ballpark. I don't care what Milwaukee's doing. I know they've kind of scuffled here coming into this series. They were playing pretty good baseball prior to that. This is the worst case scenario for me because I know the record doesn't show this. Dude, at Milwaukee scares the living crap out of me when the Cardinals go there. I think you have to minimum earn the split. You drop 3 of 4. That is not worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is getting swept. Now you've got another team you got to try and track down, and it's the Milwaukee Brewers compared to what we were thinking, which was going to be like the Padres or whoever it is that's in that last wild card.
Cardinals have 4 games in Milwaukee. They're staying at a haunted hotel, and T-Bone's having night terrors about this series. Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Andre Palante, and Miles Michaelis slated to get those starts. We'll see what they're able to do. We'll certainly break it all down with you guys next week here on the show. For Tanner Hendrickson and Zane, who does a fantastic job on the production side of things, I'm Brandon Kiley. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast if you haven't not done so already. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Got a bunch of great podcasts going out over there. The Spread Zone's doing their thing. The Last Minute Blues podcast is doing their thing as well. And we come to you each and every Thursday on the Redbird Report. Until next week, we'll talk to you then here on the Redbird Report.
Find every episode of the Redbird Report with Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson on YouTube or at 101ESPN.com.